Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we have some absolutely massive news coming from across the Atlantic. Right now, it would seem as if British Prime Minister Kier Starmer's political career is pretty much imploding. You see, recent polls confirm that Kier Starmer's approval rating has plummeted to an absolutely pathetic 23% in just the last couple of weeks, exposing the complete and total collapse of globalist leadership. This proves that populist right-wing movements like our own America First movement here in the USA are pretty much sweeping across the entire world. As many of you know, in just the last couple of weeks, Kier Starmer has done a hard 180-degree pivot on his stance on immigration into the UK. Just a month ago, he was pretty much championing the never-ending waves of immigration that have been pouring into the UK, but now he's completely changed his mind. In truth, the recent US-UK trade deal tied to President Trump's demand for immigration reform in the UK pretty much forced British Prime Minister Kier Starmer's massive policy shift. Starmer's sudden anti-immigration stance, mirroring President Trump's approach here in the USA, really just proves how catastrophic open border policy has been in the United Kingdom. Even radically progressive globalists that once championed unfettered immigration are now being forced to acknowledge the catastrophic consequences of their terrible policies. The truth is, right now, polls in the UK clearly show that 65% of the British people want fewer immigrants, further driving British Prime Minister Kier Starmer's desperate pivot. After years of open border nonsense, now he's scrambling to align with the people's will, but as it would turn out for many people, it's too little, too late. As many of you know, for years now, British Prime Minister Kier Starmer has actually championed pro-immigration rhetoric and also has advocated for the criminal punishment of people that have spoken out against all of this immigration. So now his flip-flop reeks of political opportunism, really just a shameless attempt to cling to power as his credibility crumbles. And so the reality is, Kier Starmer's recent flip-flopping has actually totally outraged both sides of the United Kingdom's political spectrum. British progressives hate his new anti-immigration rhetoric, while British conservatives see him as a spineless opportunist with zero principles. Right now, British progressives fear that Kier Starmer is turning into a Trump-light type of politician, which is pretty much their worst nightmare. Meanwhile, British conservatives, already distrustful of Kier Starmer, now view him as a flip-flopping fraud that will say anything to stay in power. So here's what's really happened. Kier Starmer's flip-flop on immigration has backfired spectacularly, with his approval ratings at an absolutely humiliating 23%, which is the lowest they have ever been. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot more to talk about with all of this, but before we do, I want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, check this out. The total collapse of Kier Starmer's approval ratings, as well as the collapse of his own Progressive Labor Party, mirrors the meltdown of America's left-wing party, the Democrats. It proves that radical progressive globalism cannot stand toe-to-toe with the unstoppable force of right-wing populism. People are just sick and tired of getting betrayed by their own elected government. In truth, Kier Starmer's alienation of both British progressives as well as British conservatives just shows that he has absolutely no idea what he's doing. Despite his promises to curb immigration over the last couple of weeks, British conservatives rightly just see them as empty promises. They know his track record of globalist rhetoric and they don't trust a single thing that he says. In fact, remember how Joe Biden and the Democrats here in the USA spent years trying to convince us that we needed a bipartisan border bill in order to solve our immigration crisis? Yeah, similar situation. No one believes these people anymore. So very ironically so, the British conservatives have pretty much entirely dismissed Kier Starmer's pledge to curb immigration as nothing but empty political rhetoric, and so they're mad at him. Meanwhile, the British progressives do believe Kier Starmer's new stance on immigration, and so likewise, they're also mad at him. And so this is why Kier Starmer's approval ratings have absolutely tanked. Miraculously, because of his recent flip-flopping, Kier Starmer has actually managed to unite all of Great Britain in disliking him. And so, whether Kier Starmer flipped on immigration due to President Trump's trade deal or to try to appeal to the anti immigrant British masses, his plan has pretty much imploded in every single way. Now he's lost whatever credibility he had, and now many Brits are actually calling for his resignation. In fact, as it currently stands, 43% of British voters want British Prime Minister Kier Starmer to resign before his term is set to end in 2029, while Britain's right-wing Reform Party, led by Nigel Farage, has seen a recent 39% surge in support. And so, in my mind, this popularity surge signals a right-wing populist wave that's sweeping across the UK, fueled by Kier Starmer's total failure. Right now, Farage's message of Britain first is undeniably resonating with the British people. And now, Reform Party leader Nigel Farage actually released a written statement about all of this just a couple days ago. Check it out. Millions of Britons have lost hope. I don't blame them. For too long, both Labour and the Conservatives have ground them down by reneging on their promises, making the wrong decisions, and disrupting lives at the stroke of an ill-informed minister's pen. I fought for Brexit and won. I never changed my beliefs, and I repaid the trust that millions placed in me. Becoming your next Prime Minister is the biggest challenge of my life, but the stakes could not be higher for all of us. I will repay those who put their trust in me. I will not let the country down. If there was one lesson that was given by the historic election results on May the 1st, it is that change can happen via the ballot box. If you want reform, you must vote for it. So folks, as it would seem, Nigel Farage is already actively working to replace Kier Starmer, and you know what? Given the way things have been going over there in Britain, I don't think it's such a bad idea. In less than 10 years, the UK has cycled through 5 different prime ministers: Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, and now Kier Starmer. They just can't manage to get a leader that actually puts Britain first. The truth is, a good leader is hard to come by. Which is why, ladies and gentlemen, it's such a massive deal that we, over here in America, are finally putting America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.